This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees hereby called to order at 06:30. We'll take a roll call. Mr. Salinas.
Present, sir.
Miss Adair.
Present.
Mr. LaFoyle.
Present.
Mr. Merle.
Present.
And I'm Steve Salyer. Dr. Montoya.
Here.
Thank you. We're very pleased you have taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we're here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We're responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and listen reports from the superintendent. We are here to make administrative and management decisions pertaining to the daily operation of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent in compliance with state government code to Open Meetings Act. Tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. Dr. Montoya.
Mr. Salyer, members of the board, and other people, guests that are here. Again, beginning to my right very quickly, Ms. Berra, who's Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Ed, Nancy Robinson, Associate Superintendent for our Curriculum and Instruction Department, and to my left, Mr. Milton Fields, Executive Director of Operations, Ms. Irma Hernandez, Executive Director of Human Relations, and not Jose Elizondo. He hasn't changed or anything. Mr. Elizondo had a family situation with his father, so he will not be here. And this is Mr. Gonzalez, who works some of our special programs for this evening. And again, at this time, I'll proceed with your permission, Mr. President, and Nancy Robinson, if you'll go ahead and begin. Our first area of program review is the curriculum and instruction area.
Put this on. We have a lot of divisions and responsibilities under this huge umbrella. So rather than reading to you, you have it ahead of time. I have brought some additional information on guidance and counseling that I'd like to pass out, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you very much. And I do want to highlight and just make aware of I think where we're doing really well and maybe next steps that really need to be considered here in the district. First, I want to start with the state accountability. It's changing. Those of you that monitor, I know many of you do. Okay, sure, absolutely. Here we go.
One more?
Yes, they needed one more.
Two more? Oh,
Two more. Got it. Here you go. All right. Okay. If not, I have more. So there's a lot of changes coming. There's a lot of things that were in the original bill that are back on the House to maybe be reconsidered. If that happens, some of it's at a very short timeline. For instance, there's a piece on the floor where they're talking about maybe kids that don't pass, going ahead and allowing a committee to meet and graduate them anyway. If that happens, think how late it already is, and things have to be looked at. So there's a lot I anticipate maybe happening here with a very short timeline to make it happen. They changed the accountability last week. Math is no longer going to count this year on the district report card at all. At first it was going to count for the district in some areas and not others of the 4 indices. So there's a lot of changes coming there that needs to be monitored and things put in place. Some may affect coursework, for instance, that we will have to be looking at. Foreign language, I'm going to make a pitch here tonight because I can. It is now required for graduation. In the past you could default to minimum plan, which didn't require a foreign language. We have really worked towards that, and I do want to thank the board because several years ago that we came with a college and career ready plan. That was a big part of it, and we have tripled our numbers, which we can show you in foreign language, which is wonderful because if they can start earlier and they can take it younger, it gives them a lot of advantage because there's very little wiggle room in order to get endorsements today. If you're going to also be an athlete or also going to be in band, makes it very hard. So if kids fail or don't have what they need, it's real hard to be able to be in some of these other programs. I don't know if we're offering it there right now. Ernie would know. Do you know if we have sign language at the high school still? I think so, right? Yes, second level. Here's the problem. There's all of these people, and all of us are good people, I promise you, that work hard, but none of us are certified in foreign language. We really need a curriculum. We need an assessment. Some of you remember Mr. Heiner, and he was so gracious in that he would meet with the foreign language teachers in the summer and try to help out. We'd pay him a little bit, but he left the district, and it's become more and more of an issue because we have dual language moving into 6th grade, so we have Spanish for Spanish speakers and Spanish for, it's just a variety. And the curriculum needs to be appropriate. So while it's high school Spanish, it still has to have selections of things to read that are appropriate for a 6th or 7th grader to read. Do you know what I'm saying? So we really need a specialist and I'm going to ask, it's the only position that I'm going to request this year. If we could get a foreign language specialist, it would be wonderful.
Nancy, they used to have French and German.
We still
Do you
have
feel
French
about
and German, and let me tell you kind of the struggle in what we're finding. And Mr. Fields is here, so isn't he still? Yes. Oh, there you are. Sorry. This is why I'm old. Let's see what's happening. Anyway, here's what's happening. The kids aren't signing up for those languages in as large as they are Spanish. And I think partially because it's more useful if you live here, if you speak Spanish. So, but what's happening is they're not being able to get their first language of choice. Is that not true?
Correct. And because there's so many students electing for Spanish, then the default is to go into German 1 or French 1.
Even though that's not their choice. They really rather have Spanish. So, and we don't have an Asian language, and a long time ago we used to. We had Chinese and Japanese here at one time. Yeah, and we don't have them anymore. And honestly, that's the bigger language for commerce, for things today than maybe German. You know what I mean? So I'm not picking, I just really feel like we need somebody that's their certification area. That's what they specialize in, so they can help create a vision and I mean, look at the difference Mr. Witt really made in a very short time in getting things together for fine arts. And so I think it's time that we can't just try to cover that anymore with teachers. It's too big a deal.
So during the budget process,
yes,
you'll be recommending a specialist?
Yes, and so the board curriculum committee, of which Mr. Morel comes, that's also their recommendation.
I will support you.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, again, the job description.
I have it.
As long as we have it.
Yes, I have it.
We will definitely, we need that. I realize that.
Yeah.
But we need that. Now is the time to do it.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad.
And I
you're
know
doing it
a
now.
budget to come with.
Yes,
And not,
very good.
if I don't have a job description, I'll hear about it.
Yes.
I have it. I already have it all.
Okay.
And so I just think it's really important. It's huge. We have thousands of kids in foreign language now between middle and high school, so important piece. Counseling, I want to talk about, and I know Ms. Adair does as well, but let me first say a few things, okay, on the trip on counseling, and then I want to talk a little bit about where we're going down the road, okay, in my opinion, of where we're at here. And again, as you all hire and look for someone new to come in, I think it'll be an important piece to look at. Counseling right now is one of the areas that we have made probably, I don't know the most growth, but a lot of growth. And as you know, those of you who are here who supported us getting a counseling director and putting some things in piece, it's come a long way. We were on radio. If you look at just take a second even and glance at the major accomplishments there. I put it in a different way because what we put in this book is the review of the goals. These are our goals this year. This is how we did on them. But I wanted to provide you with the major accomplishments for counseling because House Bill 5 made things a law that, thanks to the board's support, we already had in place. And yes, there's always implementation issues in a few places, but we do take data and find those spots. What I mean by that is when we first started, we had a lot of counselors that they were assistant principals. That's really what they were. They were doing mostly administrative work. They weren't seeing groups. They weren't seeing kids. And we need those changes way back with y'all's support. Prior to now, it's the law. So we're getting a lot of visitors. I don't know if you know, but Ernie spoke on Texas Public Radio for the whole state. He met with which senator, legislator? Strauss. With Strauss personally. He invited just Ernie up there to meet with him for lunch because Judson has such we're so far ahead. North side's come, northeast is, I mean, we're really doing great. Is it perfect? No, nothing's perfect. You want to make it better and better every year. But kids are actually getting counseling. Now there's lesson banks that were written in the summer, so that, because part of the problem is you're counseling, you're doing everything, you're going to go do a classroom lesson, and then the counselors would have to write lesson plans for that. Well, now they have a bank where they can pull a lesson plan that was created by our counselors during the summer, so that all schools could benefit from those lessons. I'm just really proud. I do know we just keep going. I think if you do the thing, I'm trying to word this well in my old age. If you do things that are right for kids, for the right reasons, truly it's the right thing to do, eventually the law will come. It always does. Do you know what I mean? And we've been very lucky, because I really feel like that committee we had a few years back really laid out some things. The kids were very vocal, very, on that committee, and they really helped us make some choices. Because of that, as House Bill 5's come into place, we're ahead. And that's really a good place to be in. Didn't say we were perfect, but we're ahead of what now has to be in place for the law. So I think that's a very, very good piece. The principals and their development this year, I do want to talk a minute about that. Ms. Bears had a big piece in that. Ms. Grady's had a big piece with System 2. We are. Do you want me to do my 3 things and then just open it for, or do you want to do each one?
I'd rather do each one.
Okay, no problem at all.
I'm on page 16. Am I on the right page?
Of this book? Okay.
Guidance and counseling?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have certainly come a long ways. The counseling portion was one of the major parent concerns.
Oh,
And not just the counselor increased, but also the activity of the counselors, and the reduction in non-counseling activities. So having said that, the board this year increased counselors. And so I want to ensure or emphasize that as we provide additional counselors, that's what they're for. We're not giving you additional bodies for you to assign them in other places and be paid as a counselor. And
Amen.
I think that's pretty clear what I'm saying. If you're a counselor and you're supposed to be under Mr. Cox, then that's what you need to be doing. If you want to do something else, then you need to apply for a different job so we can hire another counselor in that position. Because then we're defeating what we're trying to accomplish, which is the ratio. So having said that, what is the current ratio in Judson in our staffing, counselor to student?
I have the report, but I'd prefer him to speak if nobody minds.
Oh, no, let him talk.
Okay. You have to come to where they can be on mic, though, because it's recorded.
The high schools are currently at a ratio of 330 to 1. So we lead the city, correct, we lead the city with those
Excellent.
ratios.
Excellent.
The middle school ratios are very close. They're about 340 to 1. Bear in mind, though, we do have one campus that's about 450 to 1.
Who's that?
The Kitty Hawk Middle School. But the middle school ratio overall is about 340 to 1 as well. And the elementary ratio right now is quite high at 648 to 1.
Again, we do plan to make some requests through the budget process. I mean, I know you all have to decide between a lot of things, but we are requesting for
You're gonna
Kitty
request-
Hawk.
okay.
And we're asking for some split counselors between elementaries. Not add a whole nother one, but one that works like maybe 3 of the biggest schools to help.
Thank you.
Because, you know, the ratio is ridiculous in some of the schools,
And
quite
the
frankly.
elementary, just like
Yes,
you mentioned.
yes.
I-
It's very hard, and they don't do less
Definitely,
work.
sir, I will support you,
No,
especially
sorry.
for the elementaries, because I think that's where they need a lot of help too, as they're moving on to the middle school. Thank you very much for doing a great job on this 30 to 1, sir. That is excellent. You're to be commended, sir.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I was tired, yeah.
Not that easy. I only have 3 items to Mr. Sawyer tonight. I'm not interested in all that other stuff, but, okay, so Mr. Cox, having given us these numbers, how familiar are you with the Paperwork Reduction Act law, where we're supposed to be following as a school district?
So if that is aligned with the proposal with Senate Bill 165, is that what you're referring to?
It was out long before that, and I'm kind of, you know, tricking you into a spot.
Okay.
Part of the problem with not just our counselors, but our staff, mainly at the secondary level, is we ask them to do a lot of paper. And there's a law that says that we're supposed to reduce paper for our staff so they can spend their time educating our children. So if one of the things you could look at for us is when you talk to your counselors, how much time do they spend on paper versus kids?
Are you talking about overall documentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the district, you know, no disrespect meant to Dr. Montoya and his staff, but the district imposes a lot of paper requirements as well. And sometimes we forget about that paperwork issue. The other piece is, when you gave me the numbers for the middle school, how many students to counselors do we have at the early college? Do you know?
The ratio at JECA is a little under 240 to 1 right now.
So they have 2 counselors?
Correct.
Okay. And so you're not going to ask me for another one for them, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
There are plenty of other requests.
How about our new science, STEM? What's their ratio?
Currently, they do not have a counselor on staff. We are in conversation with the administrator on campus to look at her budget and make a recommendation to you all for a position.
Are the numbers at STEM counted in Judson Middle School numbers?
No, they're not. So right now, the counselors at Judson Middle have assumed the responsibility of counseling the students at STEM. So right now,
how many kids is that?
That's about 120 students right now. Next year, when we get to about 250, that's where we're asking for the additional support.
So how many kids does the Judson Middle School counselor have?
On average, the ratio is similar to about 320 to 1.
So
except for that one counselor who assumes the additional caseload, so their ratio is going to be 420 or 440 to 1.
Let me clarify. Because of the small size of the school, the administrator at that school is doing some of the counseling work. Do you know what I mean? So the counselor's not doing everything.
yeah, but I think when we, and you know, I've always been a person to tell you that STEM was going to cost us money. So the board knows, you know, STEM was not my idea, but if we're going to have it, then
Let's do it right.
let's do it right. So we didn't give them a VP. We talked about that because of the low amount of students. So the administrator has to do all of those things. I know they don't have a nurse because they're housed with middle school. So I'm going to leave you a second. What does STEM have?
Right now, they have an instructional coach, kind of like an academic deaning person,
Okay.
and the principal, the administrative director.
So will you be bringing us in the budget a counselor recommendation for
Yes.
JSTEM if they're going to be up to 250?
Yes, Ms. Worley and I have been working together to look at her budget for the upcoming year and look at the allocation that was written into the plan.
Okay. You do social workers?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I won't let you sit down and come
That's
back. So
fine.
tell me where we are in social workers this year.
Overall, with our social
Hey,
workers, we have
Stacy.
10 social workers in our district right now. 2 of them are district-wide social workers, so they respond to multiple campuses at a time.
How
Or
many of
for
them are paid
instance,
out of district
yeah.
funds and how many of them paid out of campus funds?
2 of the positions are locally funded, and the other positions are off of soft money.
So the real reality is we have 2 social workers, because the other social workers, the principals are being required to take their title money to fund those social workers. Would that be an accurate statement?
I think the statement would be that they use some title funds as well as compensatory education funds.
But the
State
district isn't using, we're not using our money.
Correct.
So, Dr. Montoya, a few years ago, we cut our social workers, and we know that the state of our country and our society, we've had some problems with people losing jobs, and I think social workers are very important. Parents need that extra bit of assistance. If you could look at giving us some social workers, maybe especially in our high poverty schools, because when we require those principals to spend their money on the social worker, then they can't use that money for other areas that they would normally spend soft money for. And so that was my social worker speech. You know, some of these things have been we still haven't got there yet, so I don't want her to leave and think we arrived. We're still working on it. Who has hall monitors?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, so when we get to whoever has hall
I'll pass
monitors,
on that one.
I'll come back to that,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes.
Back
We're
to
not
you.
hall monitors. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Adair. There are other board members with questions. Mr. Sawyer, may I? Hey, I'll just wait patiently for you. I might steal your thunder. Thank you again as well, Ms. Robinson, Mr. Cox. Wonderful job in the counseling area. I actually want to revert to an article that the Express News covered on the 15th of February, which was a really good article. In the article, you stated that 45% of the counseling was not being used. I mean, what was the word exactly? Found that 45% of it wasn't on counseling. Correct. Counselors. So you inserted some changes. When was this instituted? A year before this? When did you find that 45% of the work was not counseling?
So we started gathering data in our department 5 years ago. So that number, the 45%, was derived 4 years ago. And that's what we've done with our time and task analysis, was utilize that report to gather that data and show the steady decrease over the last 4 years.
And I suspect with our counselors counseling now, I'm always looking for ways to quantify how that's working for us.
Yes.
So what's been the residual on that? How has that increased counseling time impacted the bottom line for our students? Do we have any data that says improved score? How is that captured?
Well, so right now our focus has been the process data. So on the Guidance and Counseling website, you can see our annual report for the 13-14 year. So we'll have the same report this year, which actually shows the total number of contacts, the total number of service descriptors, and the services provided in each of the 4 components that the counselors are entrusted to provide to students. As far as student outcome measures, that's built into the goals for this coming year. We're going to really focus heavy on the student outcome differences as a result of the services that are provided by counselors.
So that'll be integrated this year then?
it's one of the next steps, sir, on his plan.
Okay, great. So we would have something then next year, or will we actually physically see something this summer? How would that?
No, we'll have to collect, we started collecting the paperwork. We started with, what are you actually doing during the day?
Okay.
And are you providing groups, and that data we have quite extensively. If you ever would like to see it, we'd be glad to provide you those data reports.
Now, in saying that, sir, remember, what we focused on first was alignment of program, because we believe before anything we need to have a solid foundation to align our model to what the state gave us. So we've taken these last 4.5 years, 5 years, to instill this foundation of what a professional school counseling program should look like. So we've accomplished that. At the same time, we have plenty of data in the counseling department. It's just not been standardized as far as a student outcome measure K-12, and that's what we're gathering. We do have 2 CREST-recognized schools with Pashaw Elementary and Park Village Elementary, so the counseling outcome data is there, where we can show, as a result of the counselor services to the students, we've seen a decrease in behavioral referrals and an increase in academic gain. So we have that information.
Okay, that's positive. And again, trying to capture that and understand it as a board member, what we're looking at is helpful. And I may have to disagree with Mr. Solaris. I do like our student to counselor ratio at elementary, but I'm thinking that critical area is that middle school with the transition from 6th grade, 7th, and 8th going into high school as probably more important. So I'd like to have at least a healthy discussion if we're going to add counselors, doing them in the middle school area where I do see a need for that. So we'll come back and discuss what your input, Dr. Montoya, what that might look like. But especially if we're looking at Kitty Hawk having such a higher
and it's on
student-teacher, counselor ratio.
Yes, sir, and it's on our request list that we'll be bringing at budget time, because they're the only one that's really, compared to the others, they're really not well ratioed.
Ms. Adair did mention something. I wish she would have followed up a little more, because I was unaware that counselors were assigned to task other than counseling. Something you started off your discussion. So have you seen, Mrs. Adair, I guess I'm asking you, instances where this has been happening, where counselors are doing something totally out in left field?
Yes, sir, and I've already talked to the superintendent about it.
Okay, well, that's interesting to note.
It's not at every campus, and the data shows.
More than one.
I see, okay. And then my last question I have for right now is the experience level of our counselors. What are we looking at in terms of our counselors now? There's obviously a big concern about retention, and so obviously every part of our employee group needs to be examined. And so what is our experience level for counselors right now?
So are we talking about the average
Yes.
years of service?
That's correct.
So on average, we're looking at about 8 years of experience for the counselors in our department. Now, again, in saying that, anytime that we have a vacancy, the positions are highly competitive. We have a vacancy right now at a campus, and we have 35 applicants for that one position.
Good
So,
applicants.
when counselors retire or choose to leave, we're not in a shortage to fill the position.
So 8 years, and just so I'm clear, that's 8 years of experience as a counselor, or 8 years experience within Judson as a counselor?
8 years experience as a counselor.
Okay. And then what does it look like in Judson? I guess, so I can understand what that turnover looks like on average. Do we know what that is?
So if you can,
Just like,
clarify for me.
say, within the district, say we have an employee that's now working with us in Judson ISD, how long, or what's the average experience of each counselor?
Mr. Macias, I'd feel more comfortable if we got you the exact number
right,
rather than
we'd have to pull
guess.
that.
Okay, so that.
I really would. I'll be glad to get it for you tomorrow and get it to you.
Okay.
Rather than
That
make a
just
guess.
helps me understand, because obviously I do
I-
like the
I
years of
agree.
experience. I think 8 years is really on target.
Okay.
But then, of course, looking back and peeling it back a little bit, how long are they staying in our district in that same area? That'll be helpful for us to know as well.
Absolutely.
Not being the technical person that they are, we have a very good retention rate on our counselors. We have counselors that have been with us forever.
Well, and I'll say that the reason why I'm going there too is because I've been told that honestly some other school districts pay even better than we do, dollar for dollar, in the counseling. So if we're going to really attack this retention issue, we need to really look at that as well, so that we are as competitive as we possibly can be. I don't want to lose more employees. So counselors are important to us.
Very.
And so naturally, let's take a hard look at that, and let's quantify that. Are we really not paying as competitively? Because, again, trying to keep our employees in place is important.
Mr. Macias, I would say, we always want to pay top dollar, but we do have a limited pot of gold. And to give you credit, Mr. Cox, the counselors are staying because they're happy. You have counseling meetings, I understand. They give input, they have a say. They feel like what they have to say is important, and it's those non-monetary pieces that can cause your employees to stay with you.
Amen.
Versus, even though we may not be paying the top dollar. And so, I'm going to have the right word to use, but you're not afraid, apparently, to hear them out and let them speak their piece, even when some have got some critical points for you. And so it takes a strong leader to be able to receive from their staff and even take some of it into consideration. I'm not saying that anybody has to do it, but I do want to commend you for holding those open sessions and allowing your people to feel like that you value what they have to say and their experience and knowledge.
Thank you.
And may I say one more thing? Okay, to conclude this, I want to thank the board on this issue. And let me tell you why. This is a hot topic right now in the state. It's why it's on the House bill floor. It's why it's on in the Texas Public Radio. It's why it was in the Express News, because people are now recognizing how important counselors are. I mean, it's really become a huge issue by a lot of news outlets. And what I want to thank you for is when we started to make changes 5 years ago, and I know you were on the board, Mr. Macias, a lot of people, if you wouldn't have supported that effort, we'd be struggling like everybody else to catch up. It doesn't mean we're perfect. We're not, nobody's perfect. But we're ahead enough that we can keep moving now and not be in panic mode all the time, or catch-up mode, and I think that's a good place to be. Houston ISD was here, what, a week ago?
A week ago.
Because everybody's got to meet House Bill 5, and they want to know how are y'all doing that. And so, again, I just want to thank you, because, you know, y'all had vision enough to support something that kept us from having to play catch-up now that it's law. So, thank you.
Well, don't minimize your contribution, Mr. Robinson. You always had a vision as well to bring that to us to discuss.
Yeah, but you all asked the good questions. I highly support Ms. Adair. The law now says you can't do administrative jobs. That's it, that you can't. So it might be before we didn't want you doing that, and we didn't think you should do it, and it was part of ours. But now you can't.
Well, and one of the other quotes I forgot to mention that I thought was interesting, and Mr. Cox had mentioned, is that testing was the counselor's kryptonite. I thought that was a funny statement within the article itself. And so I suspect that we've done a little better job, or we can't do anything about testing.
So remember, they took it in the context that they wanted to receive it.
Okay.
So well, I did. I own up to that. So I did say that, but it wasn't something that we do here in Judson ISD. Right. It's in general the kryptonite of counselors in other districts that aren't supported like we are here.
Well, thank you for that.
I apologize to
It's in print, I believe it. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad you could clarify that a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, and the other thing I kind of, I'm sorry.
I believe, no, you're okay, sir.
Oh.
I believe you mentioned a couple of districts, and now you mentioned Houston. It would be nice when that happens, tell the superintendent so he can get together with our president, Mr. Salyer, and share that information. Say, oh, by the way, Houston ISD wanted to know what we're doing here, whatever. And I think that's great. They're looking at Judson, so we're moving ahead. So I think it's important that we get some information to say, oh, guess what? Somebody decided he came by or asked questions or gave a phone call or something. So, Mr. Chairman, here we'll
done. Consider that done.
Use that together with our superintendent.
It's a double-edged sword. This year, Judson, TEA, and CREST presented together at the conference. So we actually presented with the state when we ended up with, what, 35 school districts emailing, wanting to come visit. So it's like, yeah. It is, it is.
Very important.
And again, that's part of the vision and support from you all. And I mean that genuinely. If you hadn't supported some of this, we'd be in the same boat as everybody else right now trying to catch up. I think the other thing I want to tell you, you all heard of 2020, and it's now Ingenuity, and that contract's up, and so one of the big items is we're going to bring back a 3-year proposal for that because we're doing credit recovery with that. They're using an alternative school, they're using pieces at JLA, they're using, we can get fine arts in Spanish, for instance, an alternative off that without having, you know, full-time positions for those in and out. The JAC unit was using pieces of it. So we really need it for those areas. So just to anticipate that, because we've had it every year, but now we're paying a little at a time now. A new contract's coming back. So that's probably a big piece. And I think that's it. Oh, I wanted to say about the principals. I want to commend the principals in this district. I tell people all the time, it's a lot easier for me to stand up and talk about being a principal than it is to be one. Today. There's a lot on your plate, and it comes at you at 100 miles an hour. You know, you're an administrator, and it's not slowed down with more accountability, with more paperwork, with more laws, with more everything. It's a hard, hard job. And this year, our principals and Ms. Barra, Ms. Grady, a lot of people have helped support that, have done such a great job at sitting down and looking at student work together across schools. What does the writing look like? I know Mr. Montoya got to witness that. I know Mr. Macias came in a meeting where one of the high schools was sharing what they're learning through that, you know, about what they need to do better from their teachers and what they can use to make it better. But it's really the principals doing the work, and I'm really proud of them. It's gotten to be so collaborative. between them. You know, they don't need us. They can do it. They can do it. And it's really good to see that kind of ownership and sharing. So publicly, while we're looking at this, the way we're doing principals meetings, the way they're getting to work, the superintendent's meeting, it's really interesting to bring science journals from every single school in the district and put people in clusters and saying, are we really seeing the same kind of work? And the first meeting we had this year where we did that, and Ms. Bear was helping lead that, one of the comments was from one of the principals. Her journals didn't look as good, but nobody had to point that out. Do you know what I mean? She could see the other people in the cluster, and she said, this is unacceptable. Look, they're doing that at this school, and they're doing that at that school. And so work started to get better because they could see what other people were doing. And it's been a really great thing. And, you know, Ms. Grady's done a great job every month with helping them help teachers plan better. Because that's really the ticket. It's not buying more programs. It's helping teachers really understand the curriculum. So that's what I wanted to highlight tonight. We're going to use what? Our box?
So, right there, Ms. Robinson.
Yes, ma'am.
I did want to say a couple of things. Since the last thing you mentioned with Ms. Grady, program review to me is the time where the board gets to actually have conversation. The board meetings we come but program review is to me more interactive. And it's also an opportunity where I can maybe share either good or bad things I've heard about you this year. So, Ms. Grady, ready? No. Actually, Ms. Grady, I want to say publicly that the principals that have spoken with me have commented about how knowledgeable you are in curriculum instruction and how much of an assistance you've been to them in helping them to align their curriculum, to find out where their problem areas were. They said you were very strict and you don't play, but they also said that they really appreciated your knowledge and that since you've come to Judson that you've been an asset. And so I just want to tell you that, yeah, principals talk to me and I ain't gonna tell you who they are, but you have been commended for your work. And so I want to say thank you. And then on the mentoring, what are we doing with the new principals? We put a lot of new principals in at the end of the year. What kind of mentoring support or monitoring do we have to help these guys get through the end of the year?
I can answer that. You know, we used to have a lot. If you remember me in the old days when I just did admin development and that's all I did. So we had a big continuum. And it kind of went away as people got different jobs and we've built that back up. And so partially, and you know, people can roll or not, but we have an RPM meeting once a month in addition to a leaders meeting. I will be glad to tell you it's the reflective practice model. And here's the difference. At the superintendent's leader meeting, in the past we would stand up and everybody talk to them. And like after 2 hours, they'd glaze over, literally. And then you tell them later, well, we told you at the, right? He's like, and we told you at the principal's meeting. I don't know why you can't remember. I mean, it was PowerPoint after PowerPoint to where it was like death by PowerPoint. So what we did differently this year is we do have a couple, the first part of the meetings that way, and then the superintendent, both Dr. Mackey and Dr. Montoya, have their time to speak to the administrators. Then we use the last 2 hours to actually let them work in clusters vertically. Because here's the truth. The reason the work's move forward and will continue if we stay down this path is because you have to have vertical alignment. So how they work in those groups is you have a cluster that feeds a middle school and then you have a high school assigned to it. Judson of course has more than one middle school, so we might have JLA as the high school at one of the tables and we move them a little bit. But that way with work, with data, we've produced data. We produced AP data and gave it to elementary and everybody. What does this say to you? What can we do? So now they're talking this way. way, because to make a really strong district, it can't just be this way. It has to also start at elementary and move up. And so that's been very, I can't even tell you, the principals themselves, do you want to speak to it as a principal? No pressure.
I would agree wholeheartedly. To be able to talk about what the concerns were that we weren't seeing at the high school level, and then talk to an elementary principal, and then again to the middle school principals on what we're not seeing from the 8th graders coming into algebra, it was priceless, priceless.
Well, and then they brainstormed things they could do, so it wasn't just sitting around going, we all aren't doing, you know what I mean? It was very focused on what does the data actually say, and what can we do to make it better in Judson. So new principals are a part of that, and you can't underestimate that, because that's very important, to be able to sit and be part of those conversations. The other is RPM. It stands for reflective, and it's horizontal. So we have an elementary principals meeting, a middle, and a high school separately. They do some of the same work. Are we expecting the same thing from Kirby kids that we do Kitty Hawk? If not, why not? And why does the work look that different? And what, you know, that kind of conversation? Well, I'm going to go back to, we can all say whatever. I can stand up and give PowerPoints and lecture people on expectations, but the work speaks for itself. So when they actually get to see, they also walk each other's schools as a group. And again, we're doing alignment walks. And so the principals that are new are getting to hear from the more veteran. I remember one of the first ones we did, Dr. Gerhardt, you know, and she's a curriculum, she was so good at curriculum, and she was leading one of the groups, and they would sit there and discuss it, and she was helping lead that group. So again, it's building leadership density and giving some of the more veteran people who are very good at what they do opportunities to work with some of the new principals. We also have offered classes. I offered 2 classes just recently on, and I opened it up to any administrator, and I know, Sonny, you came in the back of one of them. We filled the rooms because people really want to know. We do have J-LEAP and PREP that prepare them for the principalship, which once you get in, you still need this collegial support. But what's happening now, because they're working together on the work itself, is, for instance, Mr. Silverman created this cool alignment form. I do, we do, you do, so that when you're looking, how much is the, you know, who's actually doing the work, the kids or the teacher, you know? And so in the end, he shared it because they bring and do presentations for their colleagues on what they're doing. Well, then everybody wanted that form, so I think everybody in the district, including the high schools, have it because they all asked for it. So they're also creating things to add to what the district's doing and sharing, and that's huge support, just huge.
So what I hear you saying there also is occurring, which is what occurs outside the education system,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
networking,
Yes, ma'am.
teamwork, and bonding.
Yes, ma'am.
And so if I have a problem
Right.
in an area, because I've worked at this RPM meeting, then I can call Mr. Fields and say, hey,
exactly what they do.
you know.
It's exactly what they do.
And to me, that's how, you know, when we talk about we're losing people in education,
Yeah.
people felt alone and they didn't feel like they had support. So that's
Exactly.
fantastic.
Exactly.
You know, that they feel that.
And sometimes, you know, they're more comfortable calling a colleague than their boss or their supervisor. I mean, they just are. So if you can build that network, that's even better for them. And that's what's happening. They're creating more and more stuff. And then, of course, at leaders meeting, the system to the planning piece, Miss Grady, every week, and they do that as a whole group. Well, last time they had to each bring a piece of writing from English 1, from 7th grade, and from 4th grade. And they had to bring all the pieces to it. And then she did an activity on highlighting, looking for certain things. Is this in there? Color that purple. And so you could hold up for the whole cluster, K-12, and see if they only had purple, that meant the kids hadn't done the other 3 things that were red, yellow, and green. But it was so cool because then as a group, principals are sitting there going, okay, we're not doing enough of this. I need to help. Because the truth is, we can develop teachers all day long. If the principals aren't part of that process, then they don't know what to support or what to look for or how to help them. And so I'm very excited at their work. It's not anybody's but theirs. The principals are doing a great job. I know the one you sat through, we didn't talk, the principals did. Correct? I mean, they did all the talking. So that's kind of what you want, is a venue to turn them loose with a focus on what they're looking for, so.
Mr. Salyer, just, you know, and what you've heard here is that there is an excellent process in this district. And what I saw here is a group of principals that are actually looking at classroom lessons and dissecting, and that's a rarity in most districts. They just assume that their teachers are taking care of business. Well, here they don't assume, they look at it, and it's also a standard across the district, so that one principal isn't doing it different, or that one is less or more. This is the standard.
Yes.
The other thing I saw was the expectations are high for students, and you don't see that in every district. So this is some, always tweaking, like Ms. Robinson
yes.
says, but the overall process is very, very well established and very effective.
Well, it's a bicycle. I used to tell people in my class at Trinity, you have to keep pedaling. So the minute you stop, the bike falls over. So no matter what you're doing, you have to keep pedaling forward. Like I said, there's a lot of changes coming from the state. A lot of changes in accountability, a lot of changes in some of the laws that they passed and are unpassing or adding more to. Because the reality is you can't fail as many schools as are on the list. So they're having to relook at a whole lot of things, I think. Just an opinion. But that's what I wanted to share. I think the next big thing I would recommend on the way out is we had that College and Career Ready Committee, and it had students, everybody. Do you remember when that was, Mr. Smith? It's maybe 5 years ago?
You're talking about when we came together here?
Yeah, no, when I brought, remember when the kids came and presented all the changes we wanted to make?
12.
That was the work
Yeah.
from that committee. We had a parent. Well, that was a 5-year plan, so it's time to revisit that. Where are we now? I mean, we really need a strategic plan for that, which is what that was. And we've implemented the things at middle school, and we've increased the numbers. And we're not there, but you can only bite so much at a time. And I really think my recommendation would be to revisit that at this time. Where are we? In light of new graduation requirements that we didn't have at that time either. And to me, Ms. Adair, you were part of that original strategic planning. To me, that's the way to go, because you actually have action plans, and I know Sonny was part of that too back in the day. And really what came of that, a lot of the parent things that we did were out of that committee. And so I think it's time again to make a next 5 years. Or 3 years, whatever you're comfortable with, but it's time to revisit that now.
Thanks, Ms. Robinson.
You're welcome, sir.
One other thing, saying you've come a long way, baby, we have. Remember 5 years ago when I got elected, my second meeting?
Yes,
What
I
said?
remember.
My son was graduating, never seen a counselor at Judson High School. And Ernest engaged, and we engaged, and we actually went to Center for Intrepid and got some people motivated and
Yep.
stuff, and 5 years later.
It's your
where we're at.
support, all of you. If you all hadn't
Where
supported
we're at,
that,
it
we
worked.
would.
Ernest and you guys did it. We didn't do it. Y'all did it. But in 5
Well,
years, the flip is just incredible.
Yeah, and again, we need to do more and more, but, you supported with some additional positions. You all continue to support that work. And Ms. Adair and Mr. Macias, both of their comments tonight are true. You don't want people being administrators. If we need more administrators, then that's a different conversation, but, it's not an easy change in any district, because people like using their people as administrators. So the first 2 years was a little bit of a tug of war, but, we crossed that path, and it's been awesome. Thank you. So,
Another thing, Dr. Montoya and I, we had lunch with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce yesterday, the
You did.
CEO, and it was just sort of like, hey, who we are. But I'm going to tell you what, they're excited about Judson. They were throwing stuff at us. They gave us more stuff than I think we ever do, but it's coming. We are their pick. We are the Hispanic Chambers of Commerce pick. And they kept throwing stuff again and again, contacts and stuff. And I'll tell you
Awesome.
what, they're going to be sitting out there for long. They're supporting us 100%. And that's because of what you all done. That's because they recognize what has been taken care of.
well, I've been in this district forever, as you all know, as Mr. LaFoyle said, since the building at Kirby burned down. I was in it long time. But what I do know is we never had as many visitors as we've had in these past 2 years. Just so many. And we will make sure you always know, Mr. Salinas, no problem at all.
And again,
But a lot.
quickly adding to what Mr. Sallier said yesterday, the conversation was the chamber, that group has kind of given up on some other districts that
Yeah.
don't seem to
Yeah.
be on top of things.
Yes.
But they're really focusing, saying Judson is far ahead
Mm-hmm.
because of all the efforts of the folks here and obviously at the campus level. And so they were very open, and we're going to work with them on a lot of good
That's
projects to help
wonderful
our
to hear.
kids. So that door is
Makes me
open.
happy.
Ms. Laurel,
Yeah, since we're winding up on the curriculum, I just want to personally say that I really, really believe that Judson has really came a long ways. I'm on a lot of education committees downtown and other places, and it used to be where every time I show up, really I was laughing stop because I was from Judson. But now it has changed. Every time I go somewhere and you look around, Judson's name is in the paper, and it's not because we have done something bad. It's because now everybody want to imitate what we're doing. And that just shows that we are really doing something good. And to Ms. Robinson, Ms. Grady, and Ms. Barra, congratulations.
Thank you.
We haven't arrived, but we're knocking on the door. And we're there. To compare it to other districts, we look at North Side, everybody talk about North Side, Northeast, we well above them. And it's
They visited.
not only the administration, it's the students. The students are engaged. Every day I go to a school, I sit in classes, and the students are engaged. It's not the teachers just don't handle a piece of paper anymore, and which a long time ago, that's what they done. They gave them a worksheet, and that was it. But now, there's teaching going on. And all the classes that I go in, there's teaching going on. And the students are reacting to the teaching that's going on. And I just want to say Judson is really come a long ways. And I know that, we talked a little bit about STEM. This is our first year when we have our STEM Academy, and already we're in a national paper about STEM. And Ms. Grady, I know we worked on that for 2 or 3 years before we put it in, and Ms. Grady done a lot of long nights.
That's the, okay, yes.
Yes, and also, I had some notes, so I'm glad that we're able to talk a little bit about it. I think Ms. Adair framed it quite nicely, that this is our conversation opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, we stop you in the hall, so to speak, as well and talk, but this is more formal and definitely a better venue. But I did want to say that your remark prompted me to give a question out. Your key strategies under your superintendent, and again, I'm going to also say I apologize for being late. This may have been covered in the 8 minutes or so that I was late. But recognizing the fact that we have some challenges in our socioeconomic areas,
Yes, sir.
you have identified here increased instructional leadership in our urban schools, which to me tells me that you recognize those challenges. I want to know if you can elaborate a little on that, because that's obviously a nice 5-year strategic plan to sort of help areas in our district that need more support and resources.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Thank you for the opportunity. And I know because I went to high school here, and I went to Kirby Junior High when it was just Kirby Junior High. I lived on Lone Shadow Trail and drove all the way over there. So did Mr. Fields. Anyway, in those days, this was very rural. And I watched the district slowly change as the city moved out. In my personal opinion, we were a little late in responding back in the day, to where by the time it was here, San Antonio as a city was sitting in our district, we were really behind in a whole lot of ways. As we started putting pieces back in place, because I work with a group at Trinity, and because I work with a group at Region 20, I'm exposed to Richard Middleton and a lot of the other superintendents at the time, and the issues were the same everywhere, because the city's pushing out everywhere. And I think, you know, prep we had way back in the day here, and it had gone away. It was one of the programs that had gone away when that job went away. And so we started relooking at that here, because it wasn't about people knowing how to do discipline. You can learn that. That's not that hard. Or how to do bus duty, or how to make a schedule. All of those things are pretty easy to learn. The problem is, how do you walk into a urban 5A high school, let's say, anywhere in this city, walk in where everything's kind of needs to be improved, or, you know, transformed entirely, where do you start with instruction? And what we found is there were less and less people who could answer that question, because in their duties, especially at secondary, their duties as assistant principals so often took them away from instruction to discipline and, you know, attendance, that they didn't know what to do, and it wasn't their fault. You know, we'd promote them, and then the school wouldn't, and it was a citywide problem. Region 20 did a survey with every superintendent in the Bexar County area, and every single superintendent put them as their #1 concern. Growing principals that could do urban leadership, that's very different than if you were in Dilley or even in parts of Shirt-Ciblo. You know what I mean? Very different. And so part of what we did is, just so you know, is we worked as a group. So it was the superintendents from several school districts, Bryan Woods, Gotardy, several of the bigger areas. We worked with UTSA, Trinity, and Texas A&M San Antonio. They all sent professors to the table, and we looked at principals that were doing well. I mean, there's some schools out there, when you look at a whole city, that were outperforming other people like them. And so we looked at why. What are they doing differently? And those principals were invited to the table. From that, we came up with a framework for what do you really need to do or know about leadership in urban schools for instruction, for that piece. And just to share, the very first time we had a meeting, I asked somebody to name an educational system, and all they could talk about was discipline or attendance. They didn't think in terms, even though business does. I mean, everybody operates off of having processes in place, but they couldn't speak to instructional ones. And so that's part of really the whole goal. What's been great about PREP is it's not a Judson program, it's a city program. And we've been able to use the best principals and best schools from all those districts. And so I think that's why it's done well. It went from 27 to 50. Participants this year, and again, it's because they went to Wagner to look at some things. They went to Woodlake Hills to look at some things. We went to Marshall High School. We went to we went to Ed White. We just went to other schools. What are people doing? And I think that needs to continue the focus. What's happened in Judson is we could move faster here because it was also pulled into the RPM meetings. So our principals were able to support each other. And we'll be able to continue to do that. They're so good at that, they'll keep doing a great job, I guarantee it. They're just really good. I do think it's the struggle in the city. I think it's a struggle regardless of what district you're in, if you're sitting in San Antonio proper.
And you said that quite well, and obviously I think it's incumbent on this board, our employees, our administrators, to devise a strategy and incorporating that as a real 5-year plan of where we want to be.
I agree.
Because, I mean, it's not going to go away.
No.
I mean, so, you know, we need to address it. And it's funny because, I mean, I have a lot of respect for Mr. Fields, but sometimes when I would go to Wagner, I know he's not at Wagner anymore, I would ask how the discipline was. And so that's also on my mind as well, because there's so many issues there.
Right.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
And so naturally looking at what do we need to do across the board for schools like Kirby and Pichelle,
Right.
and there's a need.
It's a different challenge, it
Yes.
honestly is. And what I've learned over all these years is every principal's not cut out for that. They may be a great principal at Hardy Oak or somewhere, but that's not everybody's a great principal in a very urban area. It takes a special person.
It certainly will be a challenge for us, and thank you for elaborating on
You're
that.
welcome.
I think, Ms. Robinson, anything else in general?
I thank everybody sitting here.
Yes.
Because this is their work. I mean, every person sitting here, I can't tell you how many hours they put in and work so hard to make the different programs work, and I appreciate them very much.
Where is she picked up more than one? For what? Where are we on the board? She's on federal program. That's a great question. Tell her the page.
23?
You're on 23? 23. Okay, so before Ms. Barrett starts, Mr. President, I have about one question to each block. Abbott, are you going to ask for more money? Are we going to change anything? What are we going to do? I'm sorry.
Got to turn my mic on.
We are going to be making
some recommendations for Abbott.
Okay.
Ms. Grady, do you want to address that? Sure. Just quickly. Because we'll bring you the full proposal.
Your question is regarding adding more staff and increasing the
Well,
budget.
this is the program review, so I received the information in the books. You don't have to read it to me. But yeah, it is. But I just wanted to kind of prepare myself.
Okay.
Did it go well enough?
Yes.
Are we going to increase it? Because, Abbott is one of my...
Well, let me tell you, last year we started with just adding Abbott to 6th grade and only adding Abbott strategies to the ELA classroom. So we didn't have the full Abbott elective class, as most of you know. But part of becoming a part of Abbott required that year 2, we add the elective. And so because we have to do that if we want to continue working with the Abbott program, we are going to explore adding the elective without asking for an FTE. Exploring. So we reached out to 2 of our middle schools. First, we had to get the blessings of our superintendent to just ask him if we were on the right track. Then we reached out to 2 of our middle schools to ask if the scheduling would allow them to add an elective class with knowing that they wouldn't add an FTE. And both campuses kind of felt that and still feel that they can do that, and they welcome that opportunity. But we have to add the elective if we're going to remain a part of Abbott. So our goal this year, you'll see an increase in the budget, but the increase is not adding additional staff. It's increased mainly for the coordinators, stipend, which is one of our ELA specialists. Also, we have to attend the Institute, which, by the way, they're holding spots for us. So that's where you're going to see the increase in the budget. Okay.
Going right from Abbott to advanced academics, and I thought Mr. Merrill was going to ask questions on that, but Mr. Merrill, that's how I met Mr. Merrill. His daughter was in advanced academics, and so can I pass you that baton, Mr. Merrill? You have anything on advanced academics?
Basically, advanced academics, I really stay on top of it, and since I held the curriculum committee, a lot of things that we talk about in the curriculum. Advanced academics, when you look at the IB program, is completely being redone at a high school. It's going to be a really a good program where all the students so far now, they have just winged away. So now it's being redone. A lot of students are being more engaged to go into IB and AP. Most of them was going in basically pre-AP and AP and not IB. Now they're going into all 3, which is great. And hopefully in 2 or 3 years we will see some National Merit Scholars come out of that.
So.
Well, one big change just along those lines
Yep.
is the suite, the way we're getting the suite from, we're going to bring forward again, the SAT, is we're recommending, because it doesn't cost very much more at all, to also give it the junior year. So they can take the SAT and SAT junior year, SAT senior year again. So they'll be taking it twice.
You hear that, Ms. Macias?
I was reading, I apologize.
That was important. Would you say that again one more time, Ms.?
Yes. When we bring the suite forward this year for SAT and SAT, we're recommending we do what we did this year and add SAT in the junior year as well. So that they're giving day program junior, day program senior.
That's just music to my ears. Thank you for the repeat on that. That is absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate that.
It gives our kids 2 opportunities with the SAT and 2 with SAT.
So, Ms. Robinson, the only piece missing that I hear from parents is at the elementary level. We did something and then we changed it, and so what are they doing? Like, is my kid being tested? How are y'all picking these kids? Yes, well, that's still under advanced academic, right?
Yes, it absolutely is,
Okay,
but you
yeah.
put it on me.
Yeah, I did. Those are all good, I got that, now let's go on, going on. And Mr. Sauer, you know, I'm watching, I'm trying to move as fast as I can. So, at elementary, I think, you know, we need to hear, there's some concerns there. How much time are they actually doing GT? Who's getting picked, the testing? We haven't talked about that in a while. So if you want to.
And it's quite a large little document.
Yeah, so you want to bring that back to us?
Please, because I have.
Yeah, I just want to bring that up because that's one of the concerns that,
Absolutely.
that came up.
We also, just so you know, SAIC's contacted us to buy our tag curriculum.
Cool.
And they want our handbook. Region 20 also asked for our handbook. So we've made some changes. I'd be glad, I really want you to be real voiced on what it is.
Yeah, I need to be able to
But I'd rather
respond.
it's kind of like a little booklet like this.
You used to make one.
Yeah, so let me bring it,
Okay. And then I'm going to the library services. You asked us to approve this year a position. And how did that work out? Are you good? Oh, okay, you came over here for that? I know her from another school. No. Okay, so that's working, and that's good. Okay, on the grants? Okay, then I'll hold it.
Yeah,
CT is Ms. Bear?
moving to the next area, obviously, is we want Ms. Barra to cover her area, which are really the special programs. It also includes the grants and some other areas. So Ms. Barra, go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. I want to start off the federal programs and grants part with the section that Mr. Merrill mentioned. This right here is talking about the grant on the Department of Defense grant that we received. With it, as you can tell, it impacted 6 schools. And those 6 schools met last week, and I know some of you were present when we brought in some speakers, and it was all a child-directed program for the parents to see what this grant is accomplishing at the schools. As we talked about the different activities going on at the different schools, one thing you need to know is that the Department of Defense has asked to place our grant on Twitter, on their main web page, on Facebook, and they want to use the format that we used for implementing that particular grant that we received on a nationwide level. So we have gotten a lot of positive recognition on that aspect of it, and so yes, we are continuing sending up updates on pictures on the different activities that we're doing with that grant. We're also, with that, as far as our federal programs monies are concerned, we have made sure that the schools, we don't have any schools in our focus, on the focus list, but we do have 2 schools in particular that need special attention, and we are looking to provide all the materials and the resources that they need in order for them to be successful. We not only provided additional services, for example, academic deans, instructional coaches, but we're also providing as much material as they need, especially for the summer. We're also providing a summer program that engages the community and the parents along with it. Yes, from title funds. Okay? The next one I won't talk as much. Go on. Yeah, that's the program that we talked about, the summer program. Career and technical education. With career and technical education, the highlight here would be the fact that our criminal justice program is now part of an early college high school with St. Mary's University. Dr. Montoya was part of a signing committee or a signing program that we had at Judson High School, where we had chancellors and we had several people from St. Mary's coming in and signing a contract with the criminal justice program so that we could have a dual credit / early college high school along with them. So that's the start of that one. Our next goal is Wagner High School to go with it as well. We also have about 185 students that have earned industry certification and about 7 additional teachers. And usually that's difficult to achieve, but 7 additional teachers have become certified in advanced technical credit. that is statewide articulated. So we've been doing a lot of great things with career and tech. And, of course, with special education. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm going to take you back 1 minute because you, on the grants, I appreciate everything you said, but my question is, are we aggressively seeking grants, or do you guys plan on talking about any additional
No.
grant person, or is the grant, who's the grant?
We do
person
have a
now?
grant person. Her name is Dr. Bell.
Okay,
And Dr. Bell this year applied for 2, so far has applied for 2 grants, received 1. So she has met with the principals, and right now she's currently working on a grant to receive additional funding for professional development for the IB school, because a lot of that professional development in particular is expensive because most of it is out of state. So she is working with them to receive that money for professional development only. She's also working with JLA to make sure that we provide additional funding sources for the students so that they have different opportunities for them to explore different careers while they're attending JLA. Okay?
will there be some sort of grant, and Mr. Salinas has his number up, will there be some sort of grant class or whatever over the summer to help our principals to maybe feel more comfortable in seeking out, I mean, because we know that the one person at the district level cannot cover
Correct.
grants for all of the schools, and I'm not getting the impression that maybe we're going out and being as aggressive.
Active or as aggressive. I can tell you that one of the communication tools that we have in the district is a Monday memo. And in the Monday memo, we do provide every administrator, including directors, with the different kinds of grants, and we also give information on scholarships that are available. Now, they can look, they can go ahead and approach that themselves, or they can come and talk to our grant specialist as well.
That was nice what you just said. So the question is, are they doing it? You told them where they are, what they are, and then what?
Well, some of them do seek. For example, the IB program one is Mr. Hernandez did come to the person himself. He did come to that one. The one with JLA, the grant person approached them. We are working with elementary as well, and I think one of the things that I find unusual is that the principals are feeling a lot more comfortable coming in and sitting down with this person who has been an administrator before. And so they feel very comfortable talking to her and giving her some ideas and letting her kind of run off with them so that she can then, or they can then bring it back and kind of formalize the grant themselves. With Kate. Yes. She works, no, yes, she is a full-time person. She is full-time. You all, the board approved her last August. And so she started the school year. We have a full-time person working with grants. Yes. We already received one, yes. She has great experience in writing grants, and that was one of the reasons that we selected her. Also, the fact that she had been an administrator and had been in a campus before helped her a lot, especially with the credibility among the principals. Yes, thank you for the board, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sally.
Okay. One more. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the time for you all.
It's going faster because we didn't do it the other way,
Okay.
So on the CATE, we have an outstanding CATE program. This
Yes.
is the one area that me and Mr. LaFoyle always agree on, that our kids need to be prepared for the workforce. My concern is, where are we program for the new high school?
That's a good question. I can go ahead and answer it, or I can have Ms. Lafreniere, who is here. Okay, let her answer it. I'll let her come up here. Please go to the mic.
So the CAPE program has been part of the planning process since the design of the Evans Road High School, and we are working closely with the facilities department. We have the lab and the classroom actually designed. We actually had a meeting just last week to do a review of the layout and the proposed equipment and a review of all of that stuff in the facility meeting. So the two programs that are planned, there are cosmetology. We'll be back in Judson District. We're very excited about that. And also print services will be the second program in phase 1 of the high school. And print services really looks a lot different than you would normally think. There's no longer any offset printing, and it's a very digital, very technology-driven program. So it looks a lot different, but it is indeed print services. And we're also working with our business office to see how we can perhaps incorporate servicing the district through that program.
Okay.
On the cosmetology.
Yes, sir.
Have you and your staff already brought somebody that has knowledge about how many seats you need and equipment and all of that, or how is that working?
Yes, sir. In the design phase of it, we did incorporate ideas from both educational salon settings, so to speak, as well as visited 2 other high school programs. And we also incorporated the design that we had in the location at Judson, which was a very good design. It just was a temporary building, as you know. So yes, we did incorporate several different ideas and frameworks into the design.
Thank you. As far as the printing, I think I talked to you about 2 school districts that are working with some companies.
Yes, sir.
That do the printing, or they provide machines and they work along with that. Have
Yes.
we contacted those companies?
Yes, sir. We did a visit,
Actually,
actually.
after a year or 2 and
Yes.
and help with the program?
They're actually, yes, they helped us with the design. There are 2 programs, South San and Harlandale.
That's what I meant.
And we did a group visit actually to Harlandale and looked at not only the layout, but what equipment they were using, what kind of infrastructure that they had to have in place, and then what kind of output they were producing, and the costs for that. And they were a self-supporting program, so, yes.
And thank you very much, because I've been pushing for that for a couple of years, and I was very
Yes, well.
excited when they said, "Oh, we're going to have a print shop," and I'm looking forward. I think it's going to be great for our students, and then of course eventually, hopefully, save some money on the printing that all these companies that we hire to do the printing or whatever has to be done.
Yes, sir.
And I know they cannot run tests or anything, but thank you very much for doing a great job and working on that for us. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Salyer, members of the board, I think one of the good things about the print shop, number one, is that it will train our students, and as you said appropriately, the district can tap into that resource versus hiring from the outside. The other thing is that sometimes there's groups in the community that want certain things printed, and we can probably do it at a cheaper rate and make money for the program and the district. So it's a win-win concept.
Yes. Last month or not, the month before last, I visited Killeen ISD, their facility up there. And their 2 main ones was a print shop, and theirs is huge. I mean, huge. The cosmetology is huge. Every program they have is self-sufficient. It runs by itself. No money from the district for staff or anything else, because they do things like that. My first question about ours is, and I piggyback off what Mr. Salinas says, about how many seats are we gonna have for cosmetology? Well, how many chairs, in other words?
Well, the classroom portion of the programs will seat 28, which is what our district ratio is.
Okay.
It's 28-1. Yes, sir.
And really, I just wanted to make a comment on the print, which I hope is really better than what I seen in Killeen, and theirs is great. And I know we just started, and they in their third year, but they have everything. All the update stuff, they print everything for Texas workforce in that area up there. They print a lot of stuff for business. They do T-shirts, banners, the whole 9 yards. And all the kids really get the hands-on experience. And they have the equipment. Now, I know that if we're gonna do this, I wanna do it right. I don't wanna get equipment that's 5, 6 years old, and when they go out in the workforce, they're using something that's been outdated a long time before they even started. So if we're gonna do it, we really need to do it right. Not only for printing, but cosmetology and everything. And my last question is, when the high school is completed, how many CAPE programs are we gonna have total?
Well, at this point, I can only speak to phase 1.
Okay.
So at this point, are you talking about district-wide or just at that high school?
Just for Evans.
At that high school, it'll
Yeah.
be 2 programs in phase 1.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And we haven't talked about phase 2 yet?
No, sir.
Okay. That's it. Thanks for a job well done.
Thank you.
Mr. LaFoil.
After 30 years in the printing business with the government, I seen it come from inkers to toners. What that is, we actually did the printing. I set up type, everything. But now, are we going to start them with, what?
We can't hear you speak over there.
I can hear me, I got my hearing aids in. What actually, do you have any names of what type of equipment we're going to have? Are we going to start out with Xeroxes?
No, sir.
We're not?
Actually, when we originally did the design, we were working with a company called Ricoh. So because the district has changed its provider, we're going to need to look at some comparable equipment through the other company that the district has chosen. But I will say that that is always a challenge when we have to, one, keep up to date with what the industry standards are, not with what a school or a campus or a district standards are for a classroom, like what a normal classroom, a regular classroom would have for computers is very different than what you would have in an engineering classroom or lab or in a graphic design. So we go above and beyond what a district standard is for a piece of equipment so that we are keeping up to date with industry standards. So what we are looking at for copiers and production equipment like that for the district is very different than what we need to look at for a print services program. So it's a good collaboration that we'll work with the business office and our purchasing department to see what kind of a contract or arrangement that we can work with an approved vendor to provide that equipment to us at the most effective cost.
Are you talking with anybody on Heidelberg? Heidelberg is a huge machine. It will do everything. It'll start the piece of paper through and take it all the way through to punching the 3-hole holes in it to collating it. Also, Xerox does the same thing. Now, Heidelberg is ink-driven. The Xeroxes are toner-driven. They both do the same thing. But you get out in the workforce, and you aren't going to see these Xeroxes, because these Xeroxes cost big bucks. The government has them because they don't care what they spend. I'm honest about it. We had a Xerox there at Fort Sam Houston that cost $750,000, one machine. So I don't think we'll have any of that. out there.
Yes, sir.
We'll probably have the smaller ones. But I'd appreciate it when you get down to setting to what you're going to do with printing. I'd like to see it.
I think it's going to be some kind of a shared agreement with whatever vendor we select. I don't believe that we're going to go out and just purchase a machine. I think it's going to be some shared agreement, but we certainly, I'm sure that through our purchasing and business office, we'll follow whatever guidelines and present that to board in the most cost-effective way while keeping up with the industry standards.
I'm happy to see cosmetology come back.
Yes, sir.
Because I was on the board when the people stood up here and lied to us that nobody got their license. And then one time they said, what, 2 people did? I get haircuts all over the place. And I said, I'll talk to these kids out there, where'd you take your training? Judson, but they don't have it anymore. Well, we're going to have it back, I tell them. And they say, that's good because they're good teachers over there.
We actually, when I did the research, we were the highest passing percentage, private or school, in our students passing their license.
Well, when they told us about it, it wasn't that way.
I wasn't here then, Mr. LaFoyle. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I need an opportunity to talk with you
Yes,
as
sir.
well. So I guess explain to me a little bit, because I'm just trying to understand how a student will enter Judson or Wagner, and I guess I'm looking specifically at the cosmetology program, how they enter that particular program. They're freshmen, they're in school. I mean, does it start that early, or is it a senior only? Help me understand that a little better.
Yes, sir. Almost all of our programs are designed, and now with HB5 and the endorsement requirements, they are required to complete a 4-year coherent sequence of courses.
Okay.
And so all of that curriculum is approved by the state. We have TEKS for every single one of our
Sure.
CTE programs. And so, yes, they start that program as a freshman
As a
and continue through their senior year.
And there's no mistake that I like a lot of emphasis on college and career readiness, and obviously that's the career readiness part that we're talking about. So a student going through, say, cosmetology or even print shop, because I'm assuming now that that's the same model that we'll follow based on HB5, where if they want to be in a print shop type of course, they'll start their freshman year as well, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if that's the case, how are we inserting, I guess, the college potential or that college component as well? I guess the way I'm looking at it is that we're basically putting them in a career path that's going to be in the cosmetology field or print shop field, when I would probably like to look at the potential of giving other options. And I'm assuming they're there. That's why I'm asking for
They are.
clarification.
One of the very key components to all of our program is seeking out post-secondary opportunity for our students. And we achieve that in the career programs several different ways. One is through dual credit agreements, like the one that Ms. Barra just mentioned with criminal justice. Those students will now be earning dual credit in their criminal justice program as high school, as well as earning college credits at St. Mary's University's School of Law. Another way is through advance, and those are locally articulated agreements. They're agreements from school to school. Also, the other way is through advanced technical credit. There is a statewide articulated agreement which allows our students credit in many different programs and courses that the colleges, community colleges across the state accept that credit. So that's another way that we have post-secondary opportunities. And then we also have our industry certifications that we have in all of our programs. Those actually allow students to both work while they continue on their education. So for instance, a student in the cosmetology program who leaves high school with a high school diploma and a cosmetology license is able to work as they then enter a post-secondary college in a similar kind of program. It could be entrepreneurship or business management. The great thing about our cosmetology program and the success of our students in it is that they were going on to become salon and business owners and becoming taxpayers in the Judson District. So there's a lot of opportunity throughout all our career programs to develop those post-secondary and college readiness skills and opportunities.
The reason this is important for me is because I want to give opportunities for our kids to go down a college path. And naturally, if we're putting them on a path their freshman year, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't sound like we are giving that up at all, but it helps me understand that a little better so that we don't overlook that. So when we looked at cosmetology and print, I was very supportive of the health services area because we're looking at wages now. We want them to make a very livable wage when they graduate. Cosmetology pays, was there a study in terms of a living wage that comes out of it?
Absolutely.
And then with the printing, I'm gonna tell you, with Mr. LaFoyle, I was also a printer once upon a time, and I was making minimum wage, and it was not a very good way to be living.
It's a whole different world, Mr. Macias.
Now, I also know Wagner has graphic art.
Yes, sir.
And so where would that be? Is that under the human services, or is that part of the?
No, graphic arts falls under the arts and technology communications.
So is there a program, a CTE program that's similar to where they join their freshman year and learn how to be a graphic artist all the way through?
Absolutely.
Okay, so, but that would not fall under CTE, or
yes, it does.
Okay, so
graphic design falls under CTE.
Okay, so that would be, and that's a good one as well. So tell me a little about what is human services then at Judson and Wagner?
Human services is careers such as working in clinics or in retirement homes or family and community services, community centers. It can be everything from a social worker to a psychologist to center directors. Anything related to providing services to humans is the easiest way, I guess, to define it. And so that involves cosmetology, family and community services, counseling and mental health. Those are the pathways in the human services cluster. And so we do have that program both at Judson and at Wagner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Don't leave, they got the
Yeah, when you was talking to Mr. LaFoyle, you had said something that struck my interest, and that was that we have switched contracts with the printers, and so we're no longer getting the equipment for the high school from this one company. How far is that going to set us back in doing what we need to do, or is it?
No, sir, it won't set us back. We'll simply find a similar machine that provides the same kind of services through a different vendor, that's all.
Okay.
A lot of the infrastructure I talked about, you know, what the voltage is, how much space you have to have, that's pretty standard kind of stuff. And so whether it's a Ricoh machine or a Canon machine or a Xerox machine really won't impact or set us back. We'll just need to get some specs and quotes from the other company.
Well, when y'all got these particular machines, y'all got them because they would do a certain thing over the other ones, correct?
Well, we haven't gotten anything yet. We simply were doing the research.
Right.
And so we had one company at the time, who was Ricoh, provided us all of the spec information on those great big machines, such as Harlandale and South Send have in their labs. Mm-hmm. And it is based on, you know, they're actually working. I mean, South Sands had it running for several years and Harlandale for the last couple of years. So, you know, they're working and producing and meeting the needs of the student in the curriculum that they have to learn.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Dare,
Dr. Montoya, I would ask that we have the CATE programs. I think there's quite a few questions and maybe some increased interest and up-to-date data. So I think this is a little bit, I won't ask any more questions, but if Mr. President would put this on a future agenda so we could discuss CATE in length, because I want to talk about some of the funding for Kate and some of the Perkins money. So there's quite a bit of Kate, I think, that the board needs to review, if we could put that on an agenda.
Dr. Go ahead.
Mr. Sally, members of the board, I think that's a good comment that in the future, very soon, maybe we do just the Kate programs a little more in-depth and let that be part of the discussion. And just, Mr. Sally, one other quick comment. Mr. Macias had a good point. What is going to be the Phase 2 piece at the Evans High School? And I think that once we move that way, we're going to have to discuss that as to what would be an appropriate program. And I know that the Texas Workforce Commission does a lot of studies as to career areas in the future, because you really don't want to put something there and spend thousands of something that's just going to last a couple of years and disappear. So I think that's a good point that he brought up, that that'll be a discussion as we look at the Phase 2 development in the future.
Yes, it's a very important part of program planning to include the workforce, the community, business and industry partners, post-secondary partners, and so it really should be a strategic planning committee made up of a lot of individuals that can have input into the planning.
I want to say thank you for everything you've done. You know, I started preaching this, I've been on the board 12 years, I started preaching this the second year I got on the board, that not every child is going to college. No, it was the second year. I remember that. Those kids, not every child is going to go to college, and we need to set them up so they can get out there and make a good living wage. And I think our welding program has really done that.
Yes.
Well, the really great thing about our career programs, I think, is that it no longer is a choice of one or the other. The great thing about career programs now is that they have the option to either go to work or to go on to college. So they're not forced into one way or the other anymore. That's right.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much. My daughter graduated from Judson 2008 in the pharmacy tech program.
Yeah.
And she made $12 an hour, 18 years old, when she's going to college. So I know this works. And I tell you, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce really wants to engage in this. So we got some good things coming. There's some stuff out there we didn't even know about. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Special education. Our last one. Yes, for special education, one of the areas that we're working on is the number of students that are sent to in-school and out-of-school suspension that are labeled special education. So, yes, I have a low voice. So one of the things that we are doing is we are meeting with the principals on a frequent basis to ensure that the students that are being referred, that they have other options. And what we have seen this year is that there is a reduction at the high school level of the number of students going into alternative education or in-school or out-of-school suspension. And most of it is due to the fact that the principals, the counselors, the assistant principals are very familiar now with the students and making sure that they provide other avenues for them to work out their differences and to look at different things. So they have been working on that, and we continue to work in that area as well. I want to share with you, Dr. Gill, I want to share with you this flyer of all the accomplishments that they've done at the Special Education Department. And one of the things that I want you to look at, if you would look at with me, please, is that we are looking at the number of students in special education that is increasing dramatically. A lot of it is coming from parents that are requesting that their students be tested in special education. So we definitely are looking at that area. The one area where really a lot of our requests are coming from and where we have a lot of students is speech. If you look at the number of speech students that are that we're looking at, is we have a lot of our students there. And we're also looking at re-evaluating their arts to make sure that those students have not exited out of the program, because it is, when you look at all the different programs that we offer, that is the one particular program that has a lot of students in it. So we are looking into that area. Also, the one thing that I do want to say, and this is again a big thank you to you all for approving that we change the service provider for the Medicaid, for the SHARS. In the past, we have raised, or we have brought in about a little under $2 million a year. We changed this past year, and as of now, we are at a $3.4 million up from last year. We're planning on going at $4 million this year. Yes, the group from Houston. Yes, yes, sir. So that was one of the things, and so I do want to thank Dr. Gill for, and Ms. Patterson for bringing that to our attention and making sure that we could, you know, look at the revenues that we were bringing in. And so we are being successful in that, and we're also being very, looking at the stewardship on our part as far as the money for special education. Okay? Thank you, and that concludes my presentation on those three. Yeah, wish.
It's been a long time. Are we still on the 10-day for the special needs? You know, you put them in ISS.
Yes, yes, we are.
We're still on that, right?
Yes.
And if it goes beyond that, then we still have to meet with the ARD and
Correct.
the parents or whatever? Okay. The other one is the budget. I know, the other one is the budget. I know we get money from the state, but that's not enough. We always have to supplement from the local. And when we start doing the budget, you and Mrs. Gill maybe give us, say, for the 2014-15 out of budget from the district, this is how much we spend, and see how much the difference between the year before
Previous one,
and this school, at least 2 schools.
And we are doing that in
And
the
maybe that's
program.
something we can work on.
Yes.
But gaining this from Medicaid or whatever
Yes, the
will
SHARS.
make a big difference. And thank Dr. Gill and her
Yes.
staff, and of course, you being in charge for continuing to work on it. This is very important to me, because I know that it takes a lot, and I know the parents request, and we can say, oh, no, we're not going to test you. No, we have to. They need to understand that it's not a one-week thing.
Right.
And I hope if they understand that, because parents used to, you mean, I requested it 2 weeks ago. It's a slow process. You just have to wait. There's a certain things that have to be done before. It's not just, oh, yeah, we're going to test them next week. It doesn't work that way.
And I do have to say that,
Time-consuming.
I do have to say that Dr. Gill does have a process in place to
Thank you.
ensure that the students are
Thank you.
fast moving
This is-
through that.
This is great. I will be listening very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
Picking up right where Mr. Salinas left off on the money, I'd like to see how much money we spent contractually. When we started the budget last year, we discussed hiring some of our own staff in special ed, and I couldn't really keep up with what happened. What did we do with we said we were going to hire, I remember we discussed some of the salaries we needed to increase in order to be able to hire. And so as we prepare to go into this next budget, please give us some specifics. If you didn't hire and you use contractual services, why? Or what do we as a board need to do to support you to have more of our own staff? I really think you get a better response when people really belong to you. And so I want to support us.
Yeah.
And if we need to change the pay scale, we have a new HR director. She'll be happy to work with us, right, Mr.
Yes, one of the areas that we're definitely looking at are the speech services that we provide. And we're looking into hiring our own, and we've met with Dr. Montoya, and that was one of the things that he said. Cut out on all the different consultants that you have. We want you to focus on the people and see if we can bring in our own resources.
That is interesting as well, and I know it's not part of this, but even our partnership with the Princeton Review for the SAT, when we initially brought it up, it doesn't have to be Princeton Review that provides that service. It could be our teachers, just a plan in action, so it's utilizing our talent rather than paying an outside entity for that. So certainly we have room there if we want to do
Well,
something
that's,
there.
yes.
But my question specifically with special ed, I'm understanding that there's some movement from some of our special ed students from Converse Elementary to Salinas. I'm not aware of that move. If that can be discussed a little bit,
Yes,
I'd like
we
to know
can.
what that rationale was and what the outcome is
Yes.
for that move.
One of the things that you do need to know as Dr. Gill comes up to the table, as we were looking at moving, because we're trying to make sure that our services are distributed district-wide, and with, at Converse, that was one of the campuses that last year, we gave them a year's notice that this change is coming up the following year. And so we want to make sure that the services that we provide for our students that need it the most are distributed equally across the district. And so Dr. Gill can tell you a little bit more about that.
The movement that you're talking about involves the PPCD Apple unit. At Converse, we have two PPCD programs. We have a general PPCD program and an Apple program. And the Apple program specializes in a highly structured learning environment, and most of the children in that unit are students with autism. And because Converse had two units, it impacts inclusion opportunities for those students in the PPCD general program and the PPCD Apple program. In other words, Converse may have one pre-K teacher and one kinder teacher, and if we want to include our PPCD students in those classrooms and have them be in more inclusive settings, this year we had to add a teacher to Converse because we had so many of our students moving out from our self-contained units into our general ed population. And so what we talked about last year was moving that unit so that we could, just provide maximum possibilities. If all of our students want to be included, we can do that and I think it's a positive thing. As a matter of fact, today I met with one of the parents. I wanted to make sure that the parents knew why we were moving. I wanted to address their concerns, and we met with one parent. I have many more to meet, and their concerns, of course, was the classroom, and we assured them that the classroom is beautiful, and it's even larger than the classroom that they have right now. We have an excellent principal. Miss Georges Penny is the principal at Salinas, and she's wonderful, and she's very positive. We're going to actually move the staff. That was another deal breaker. The parents and the students love Mr. Brown, and so he has agreed to move as well. And so for me, it's a very positive thing. We ended our first meeting with the parents in a very amicable and happy way. So I think it's good. But to answer your question, the reason that we did that move is to just provide more inclusionary opportunities for our children at both campuses, at Converse and at Salinas.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you're having that engagement because naturally that's who's approached me as well with their concerns. So as long as things, and it sounds like they are being addressed to engage the parent, to alleviate their concerns. It sounds like you have a lot of confidence in the new facility having all the appropriate amenities that are needed for special needs students. Then we should be fine. But naturally that's come up, and so I wanted to make sure that those were looked at, and I'm confident that they look like they are. So
we also agreed to have like a little mini open house at the very beginning of the year so that the students could look at the new classroom and that the parents could meet the staff there because it is a new campus for them.
So the special ed dollars, they come from general operating funds. What bucket of money? State? So
state and federal, right?
Yeah, we do get separate, so it is separate. So are we going to add additional personnel for the split from that bucket of money? Do we know?
I'm not recommending additional teaching staff or paraprofessional staff this coming year.
And so I asked because since it is a different bucket of money, and I just wanted to confirm, we may have the ability to do that. So, I mean, you know, if it's not coming from our general operating,
But if you give it to us, we'll take them.
Let's maximize our expenses so that our students are cared for. But if there is room, I certainly would be open to it as a board member to see what that looks like. But basically, since it is split, I'm thinking you're going to need professionals in both campuses, which in my mind means we're adding personnel. That's why I thought I'd ask. But, you know, what is the student-teacher ratio in that regard?
In our PBCD units, we try to keep them about 6 to 8, and sometimes we'll go up to 10 children. And in our PPCD Apple unit, right now we have 10 children, and that's rather large. And so but we also know that we will have children that will move out at the end of the year because they will age out of that program and move into other programs in the district. And so that's another reason why we wanted to keep the 2 units separate, or not put 2 units on one elementary campus, because it does really, it could minimize the opportunities that our children have to move out into the mainstream when you have 2 classrooms that impact just, like I said, some of our elementaries just have 1 pre-K teacher, some might just have 1 kinder teacher, and so if you have 15 children moving out, it overloads those 2 teaching classrooms.
Well, and I guess the last thing I'll say on if Ms. Adair's giving me a hard time about adding new people, we'll have to argue about that one. Maybe we can increase compensation, again, about retention. And so that might be a possibility as well. So again, I'm looking at all aspects, and retention is absolutely key for me. And if we have money to do it, let's do it.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Adair, quickly.
Quickly. I want to say that we've had a little bit of transition in Judson in special ed, the leadership. And so I would be remiss in not saying that since you've come to Judson, our program has improved, we haven't faltered. And so, and I see your car late, so I live in the neighborhood, y'all. And so I know you're spending a lot of hours, but I just want to thank you. And also as a board, we haven't been having to hear legal actions for failing to do what we're supposed to do.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
That was quick.
Thank you. Is that it, Ms. Barra?
And that concludes my presentation.
Dr. Montoya, moving on.
Mr. Salyer, members of the board, the last group here is Mr. Gonzalez with the Student Support Services area. Mr. Gonzalez?
Good evening. I'll be quick. First, we'll begin really with some good news. Last year, I reported at this time that we were beginning to launch our computer-based GED program. I can tell you that it's gaining speed. To date, we've already tested approximately 200 students in the GED program. And so we will continue to monitor that progress. However, like any new program, it comes with catches. We are not able to get a lot of the data that we need in order to have a graduation ceremony this year because of FERPA laws. We are working with an MOU to make sure that we get the data that we need. But it was a surprise to a lot of different districts as well as to how Pearson was going to hold some of that data and some of the requirements that they were going to use and mandate that we jump through, some of the hoops that they would make us jump through in order to get that data. From a pupil services standpoint, I can tell you that placements are down, alternative school placements are down. Knock on wood, as May and June come through, that we will have quite a reduction. As it stands right now, we're at 290-something placements. At the end of the year, we were at 400 plus. So we're hoping that that reduction will maintain itself. As far as expulsions, we remain the same. Last year we had 2. This year we are sitting at 2, and we continue to think that we will maintain that number as well. Our bullying reports are down. Last year we were at 131. So as we cull through our reports and look at what is being stated online and at the campuses. We can report that as of today, there's only been 95 reports. And I can also report that a new facet and trend, and something that you can keep your attention on with our attendance policies and rules, the legislature is starting to make some new decisions that are going to affect attendance and the way we file on student truants. I've been working closely with Mr. Bray, who has been working closely with Precinct 1 and Judge Bull, and we can tell you that we are continuing to manage and massage a program that has different progressive measures as what the state wants to call them. But we're very worried about some of the decisions that are going to come out, because right now we maintain a 95% attendance rate. Should they decide or determine that they're going to decriminalize some of the truancy laws, that would have an impact on the way we process cases. And I can tell you to date that we've processed 1,600 cases that we filed on for truancy. That's down from 1,900. And in working with Precinct 1, we hope to continue to decrease those cases, but at the same time, we want to have some accountability to the kids that truly are in violation of the law. Again, we are paying attention to the legislation. We are supporting what we think is some progressive measures and some sanctions that do hold parents and students accountable for absences. Later on this week, I will be submitting an editorial page from a Dr. Kelly out of Pearland, who explains our position as a district, or as district officials, with regard to how the law really should look, and what we do as district administrators, counselors, teachers, and principals, with regard to what we try to do to not file truancy charges on students as well. And I can also brag that from an accountability standpoint, we continue to meet the trend of decrease in our dropout rate. How that will affect accountability, again, we continue to monitor and track the legislation that's going on, because one of the impacts that, as we hear with truancy, is that there's so many court-ordered GED students that have to be mandated to specific programs. There are different codes, and coding is what we look at to determine what type of lever or what type of withdrawal codes that we use that trigger dropouts. So we want to be sure that we understand what they're going to pass with regard to what counts for a GED and what doesn't count. I can also tell you that we instituted a program called Parchment with regard to any student or alumni asking or wanting to request a transcript. Over 1,100 transcripts have been made this past year. We're going to tweak it a little bit more so there's more visibility on district web pages as well as campus web pages to ensure that there's more accessibility to that. But we are pleased with those outcomes. Adult and community ed classes are up, almost doubled, from 3,000 to 7,000. We believe that's because of the use of the local paper and its readership. That comes at a cost, but we think that that also gives our community, the students and the community, an opportunity to take advantage of classes that are available to them throughout the day, throughout the evening. Adventure Club is up approximately 1,500 students, and that takes into account after school and kids whose parents have the availability to let them drop in at any time once they sign up for the class. Also to note that Adventure Club isn't just an after-school program where they just do some tutorials. They've been involved in community service projects. They help with the Thanksgiving feast. They also send letters and cards to wounded warriors, and they're delivered through there. So that it really is a well-knit after-school program that looks to provide service to the community. We also started a pilot last year that you were aware of. It was called Friday Night Live, where parents who wanted to drop some of the younger kids off instead of having them run around a football game, which I'm okay with them running around a football game as well, as long as they're somewhat monitored. But we started with a site at Rolling Meadows, and it was so successful that we opened a new site with our new campus at Copperfield. Now we are and both of those sites in the pilots have done so well that ELOF is now wanting to come on board. So as we ask that the principals have a buy-in to that, and they are rewarded, they are compensated for those activities as well. But we're going to see how that works and continue the trend. And I believe that that's been a successful program for our community as well. They certainly have taken advantage of it. As you well know, we also are in charge of state testing, and we've reduced the number of incidents approximately 63% over the last year. I will tell you that technology, as it is our friend, it is also our foe. But we've also managed to collaborate wonderfully with the technology department in having a plan to meet the needs of the TELPAS test, the ALT test. And so we're moving into that phase of providing online tests. We started with our partnership at Northeast Lakeview with our tax test, and we're continuing that as we move into EOCs. Our only concern is as we continue with EOCs and as depending on whether or not the testing program broadens, as we all know it will with EOCs and online testing, how we manage that. So I will tell you, Ms. Brown has done a great job in collaborating with Steve and being creative in the ways that we deliver the tests. And last but not least, health services. Last year, or this past year, we applied and received EpiPens at the cost of $18,000, no cost to the district. If you're following any legislation, you'll know that they are trying to mandate EpiPens for all athletic events because of what happened in, I believe it was Corpus, with the young man who was who died because of an ant bite. So we are monitoring that legislation, and we'll be working with the athletic department. So over and all, it's been a great year. It's not over, but we continue to have a positive year and a positive outlook with our department.
Thank you. One quick question. How are we with Precinct 1 and the mandated downtown truancy program? How are we meshing that? Is it working? I'm looking. I've heard rumors.
I'm going to answer that, and I'll let Mr. Bray, as he's making his way, come up to let me tell you what this is our first year in this pilot, and we've heard a couple of things, but I'll tell you what's working, and maybe Mr. Bray can echo this. What's working is that it is creating a better dialogue between parents and the community parents and the campuses with regard to attendance. What's working is that it's getting the attention of students that their parents now know, and they can't defend, if they're truly not in class, they can't defend period absences. I think what's working is that we're able to show the state a little more about what local control needs to look like. And precincts, when the rules change, precincts and judges, they get a chance to understand how we're not a north side, or we're not a northeast or an SAISD, but what works for Judson, they can take pieces and go show other districts what works in our district can work for them. Things like our truancy intervention program. But I can tell you we've had a lot of positive support, because today we had a program, a forum. Our judge has come into, Precinct 1 judge has come into, this will be the fourth time? Fifth time?
Actually, it'll be about the 9th time.
All right. Fourth time that I've seen him. He's come into our community and has been very vocal and very visible in our community about wanting his kids to be in school. So just like Judge Lopez used to come to our rallies, we have another judge who's interested and advocating for school attendance. So with that, I'll let Mr. Bray answer how it's going.
Can you, first of all, ask your question again? Because
Sure.
I
The
want to
state
answer.
mandate is now that we have sort of a centralized truancy, which we have a county court judge downtown that's supposed to oversee all this. How are we integrating with that, and is it working?
Okay, that's a, how we're integrating with it is how he expressed it.
I know we have two kingdoms here.
Yes, we do.
There's two kingdoms, and I know there's headbutting because I hear about it downtown.
Yes. Yes.
Well, what?
I think this is one of those things we need a board presentation on.
Well, not necessarily, because it's really a brief answer. I'll summarize, it's a positive thing, okay? So no matter what I might say that might sound a little adverse, that's just the growing pains when anything begins. And what they did was they started this in August of 2014, and we're all educators. You cannot come to a school district on August the 10th with a brand new county-wide program and say, everybody, you're mandated to do it.
Right.
It's like all the principals go into shock. Like, what do you mean I got to, retrain all of this? And we had to flip our whole district. We had to flip everything we did because of that. 25 in the education code, the two mandates, 250915 and 0916. They mandated that we had to do this.
Right.
And we're going to do it for this year and next, up until 2016. So it was like, it wasn't one of those, bitching and complaining. It was like, okay, we got to do this. Let's get together. Let's figure out how we're going to do it and make it work. Well, it's taken about 4 months to get it to working correctly. And now it's going real smooth.
Okay.
But we had some growing pains, and like the county just did not understand how you can step into a school district and say, all right, I need you to move this table over here, and it's just a little table, it's no matter. Well, in the school district, you got to get permission to do this and permission to do that, and if you don't explain it to them, it just, one thing led to another, and it was just kind of hairy them first couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's probably what you heard. Now, if you hear rumblings, it's going good.
Okay. Judges are critters that don't see things
that's
the
my
way
way of putting it.
everyone else does. I have friends, so, anyway.
Sorry, I don't think the board has heard the detail of what we really are doing.
Well, it
That's
was-
the things that I think we should have in a board meeting.
Yeah, we could.
We should hear, I mean, I know you have your little conversation with the judge, but I don't think we've had a presentation at a
No.
board meeting on what we've done as a district
We
and how we've implemented
We can do
it.
that. I agree. I mean, it's complicated.
Oh.
It's real complicated because we have two masters now.
Yeah, well, for now.
For now, we
Well,
got
for
two
right now.
masters.
But all of this could go away.
Right.
And I mean, so there's a lot of dialogue, so we keep talking to everybody about it, and Mr. Bray's correct. I mean, it was pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
And so we were glad to ensure that we were going to work our end out and make sure we were following the law as well as working with the precinct.
Thank you. Mr. LaFoyle.
Summer programs.
Yes, sir.
Last year, we fed the children, supposedly, which didn't materialize. We had the Parks and Recreation did the summer program last year. They give the kids a box lunch. Are we going to go back to what we had before and have the children fed by our people? Give them a hot meal at lunchtime?
Are you talking about child nutrition? Is that
Yes.
program going to be open to
Yes.
everybody?
Is that going to be open again this year, or are we going to go with Parks and Recreation?
We are going to.
And it bombed. It bombed big time.
If you're talking about the summer program through Parks and Rec, they work directly with Mr. Fields' department. If you're talking about Adventure Club, we have a program.
Venture Club run it, didn't they, for a
No,
while?
sir.
Didn't they
Not
do the
Adventure Club.
program
We do
at the
have
schools?
Adventure Club runs a summer program.
Yeah.
But that's different from Parks and Rec.
Well-
Adventure Club does bus students to campuses that offer them meals.
Yeah.
What happened was Parks and Rec made these big promises, we're going to feed everybody in certain schools, and they gave box lunches.
Yeah, box lunches, which
That's
were
correct.
lousy.
But we had no control over
That's a different MOU.
Yeah. They were running wild out there, the kids.
Well, Mr. Fields approves of the sites, but he's not directly in charge of the program. That's Parks and Rec. That's him.
Yeah.
person is with the food service people, because before we used different food service with the Department of Ag for the summer.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I want to know if we're not going to have Parks and Recreation, if
I'm
you
not-
know about it.
I
You
wouldn't-
don't know.
I wouldn't know about that, sir.
Mr.
I don't
Montoya,
pick
do you
those
know?
sites. But I can write that down and
Maybe
check
for
with.
tomorrow to share that information. I don't know, but we'll find out and share it with the board.
Because it was terrible last year. Terrible.
Well, I have all my little notes, and in the interest of time, I'll let you just go through, but now it's gonna be harder, so, okay? Okay, you talked in the beginning about that we've reduced our referrals, et cetera,
Not referrals, just placements.
placements, okay. So, what I want to make sure of is, and believe me, I'm all for that, I'm in support of that, but I want our teachers to still feel that we're supporting them as well. And I've heard a little bit of rumblings that the teachers may not be as satisfied with our discipline. Some of them have mentioned that they have issues with students and we just send them back. So if you can kind of look at that overall, when you have your principals meetings and stuff, if the principals can ask their teachers how they felt this year, do they feel like we're supporting them in that area? And that's just a statement. You don't have to respond to that.
Yes, ma'am.
I won't put you on that spot. And then I had a big note on improved parent communication. And I want to take that across the whole area of student support services. I've got a couple of things I'm going to ping you on, Mr. Gonzalez, but I want to commend you on our improved parent communication in all areas. Both the attendance office has improved communication. Parents are not complaining that they didn't know what to do, they didn't know where to respond. They got this court notice. I haven't heard that this year. Y'all are out there meeting with parents, you're returning parents' phone calls. Our transfer program, you're communicating with parents. And so that's a big thing for me, is parent communication. So your staff and your area, you guys have really just done terrific in that. But then on the other hand, I've received a lot of complaints about the dress code, that we have allowed it to lapse, that it's not being enforced, that our kids look like, and I'll just let the face and the body language speak. And so as we prepare to end this year, we can't go out lax. And Richard's waiting to talk. We got to do something with this dress code. We have one. Let's enforce it. Remember years ago, I tried to get y'all to go to uniforms. Oh, no. So we don't have uniforms. We got a dress code. Backpacks, clear mesh. Why are kids walking around with bags and black bags? And parents are telling me, hey, my kid's telling me they don't have to have a clear backpack anymore.
That is correct.
Why?
Because it's in the student code of conduct.
Why do we?
I asked that last year, and they said the principals from the middle school, correct me if I'm wrong. Middle schools and high schools said, no, we don't want clear.
And I won't go into why we need to go back, because we didn't have some of the incidents that we've had this year when we had clear and mesh. And even though the parents are buying what their kids want, especially in high school, they're complaining that we're just looking like we don't have a standard. And unfortunately, not your area, but Dr. Montoya, that standard also goes to staff. I've gotten complaints that some of our staff are not dressing appropriately, and so there's a problem with them speaking to their students. The bullying reports, I'm glad to hear that your numbers are down. but I'm getting more complaints. I know our police chief had a great program with the great program, I didn't mean to say it like that, but you know what I mean.
Right.
I don't know if we're still doing that, or I think some of our kids need help in addressing the problem. And I think they're just not reporting. I don't think our bullying is down. I think they're not reporting.
Well, I will tell you that we receive several different types of requests. We receive phone calls. Now, there's a difference between what may be a one-time occurrence and true bullying. And so sometimes those one-time occurrences, and Ernie and I, Mr. Cox and I have had these discussions, because what gets reported as bullying sometimes is a one-time occurrence that gets resolved and it never comes back to us, and we've seen that a number of times. So a lot of times those complaints come to us as bullying, or maybe they're reported to you as bullying, and they're not ongoing things. And I'll give you a classic example. In the report I gave you, if there was some ongoing issues with bullying, I would say that our district would have had more reports on bully transfers. We've only had 7, and we've offered the bullying transfers for the past 3 years. So
Who do we transfer when they request that?
Either one.
Okay, because the parents are under the impression that if they report that the child that's saying they're being bullied is the child that gets transferred, and they don't want their child transferred.
Well, and we've made that very clear
to
people, and we've had those discussions with parents when they do call. If we go through the steps, because it isn't the first time, it's an automatic, and it's a case-by-case situation. It is very sensitive, and we bring those to the superintendent's office when we know that it's been documented that they've worked with the campus, they've worked with the students to determine what we have on our hands, because we want to be thorough and not get ourselves in a due process situation where we didn't follow through. So we do monitor that, and once again, a lot of the issues that we do see, sometimes they are one time, or campuses will report to us because we ask for feedback. Every time I send a bully report out, I ask for a response in return as to what they did. And a lot of times it is a communication issue where they sit down with those students and either issue a safety plan or a stay away agreement. And those may be effective. If they're not, then we continue the trend, because we'll get a follow-up phone call.
Well, I will say, Mr. Gonzalez, that parents have called your name, and they don't always call your title right, you know. And they'll say, well, I couldn't get anything, and then I finally talked to that Mr. Gonzalez over there. And yes, I can definitely say that you follow through and that you give the parents an avenue to address their concerns. So just if that can kind of filter down so that you're not the only one that's given the parents that impression of caring, maybe a little bit more on our school level. And lastly, the attendance. No one's mentioned it, but every year, are we going to ask for more money for AIM?
And careful what you say.
Okay. Trust me, I heard what they told you. The thing is in our, we submitted a request for 2 additional staff members to address this new initiative that we've got going on. In that justification, I think it's where it's mentioned, AIM now has come to us, and I bolded and underlined it, for no additional funds. They're going to process another almost 200 kids as a pilot program that addresses this communication thing that you were just talking about. So we're saying, yes, okay. I'm saying, yes, okay, and I'm hoping that you all, back me up on that. Yes, okay, let's do that. And then next year, I can guarantee you they're going to want some more money. So, because they're going to, they're going to show us first what they can do and see how it works as a pilot program, in addition to what they're already doing at no additional cost. And then if we think that that's good, which it will be, I'm quite sure it will, they're gonna ask for another X amount of dollars, and they'll have the justification already there.
Here's our biggest fear, and it's not because we want to prosecute truancy. Our biggest fear is that the legislation will change, and they will throw everything into the civil courts. Now, the issue is that everybody's so worried about the charge and the warrants that are issued with how we file now currently. Now, if you file in civil court, there is no issuance of a warrant, and there is no formal charge if a student or a parent failed to show up to a civil court. There's nothing. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do to prosecute. If the current laws or the current progressive sanctions stay, what Mr. Bray and I have talked about is that in order to help the secondary campuses where we know we can make a difference, we need to really identify some staff members that can go and free up administration, but clearly look at reconciliation of the attendance. And so we'll have more of a discussion at budget time as to what that needs to look like. Because I think we've always hovered at the 95% mark. We believe we can get pretty close at, especially targeting the high schools, to the 96 mark and maybe the 96.5. Because we've always stayed at the 95, which is higher than the Region 20 average. So we'd like to push it, but it comes at a cost, but that cost may have greater benefit than the cost savings. I mean, it'll save us more than we think.
The two areas in the education code that has mandated us to make this change, or I say us, the Bexar County, to make this change, combined with the initiative that we're guinea pigging with the city, combined with what possibly out of the 18 House bills that have been submitted or that are in committee in Austin right now trying to decriminalize truancy. As Nancy said, Judson, we'll put it like this. I came from back in the 80s when we were country bumpkins, and Judson was country bumpkins. Now, I'm in agreement with her as we're trendsetters now. And if we're going to keep on being trendsetters, and for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been ahead of this monkey. But if we sit back and just wait and see what's going to happen, we're going to be back here pulling, trying to catch back up for air again. So we're going in a positive mode. We got some ideas on how we think we can stay ahead of the game, and if you guys just work with us, boy, we'll make you proud.
But you know, that's why it's very important, Dr. Montoya, that the board understands, because when we're asked by legislators, or when we have the opportunity to have that conversation as elected officials, we need to know what we're supposed to be saying, and we need to state it properly. So we need a little bit more education to be able to do that. At least I do. Maybe my fellow board members are already there, but I need a little bit more insight.
If you'll just tell us, sir, if you'll just let us know.
I think, again, not to belabor a point, but we could probably create like a fact sheet with specific bullets, and I think we can share that with the board, not too thick or extensive, but something right to the point. And why don't we do that here in the next few days?
Yes, sir.
And share it with the board so everybody's on the same page.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Ms. Adair, for bringing up the dress code. If you remember a few years back, we had a dress code that was working, and we had a board member whose child didn't like that dress code, so it was changed. Now we're in trouble. The kids wear whatever they want, look however they want, haircuts, the whole 9 yards. We can't do anything about that. It's in there that they can wear that. No, we can't, because if you remember, the dress code is supposed to be made by the state. We did bypass that time. Am I right, Joe? Don't the state
what I believe what you were instructed is that it's not necessarily the charge of board members to approve the handbook. And in the handbook is where you have
the dress code.
I think what you need to do is give us some advice, and what we can do is work with our administrators to enforce what we currently have, and we can do that. I think like anything, we've been going down the road where it's been good, and we've been doing a good job to a point. But if you'd like to see changes, I think if you'll get with Dr. Montoya, then we can address some of those changes that you'd like to make. Mr. Anthony, he oversees the development of the Code of Conduct and the student handbook. We always have that team of principals and community people that are a part of that. He's already begun to establish those different committees. We wait at this time of year because everything has to go through legislative session, and we never know what's going to come out, the riders that come out of those bills. So I know that if there's something certain, you can suggest that to Dr. Montoya, and he'll get with us as far as what recommendations you'd like to see.
I don't think it's just me that wants it. I think it's the whole board that should do this.
Mm-hmm.
It should be the community and the board that does this stuff.
Once again, I think that...
Not just me. That's what we had last time.
I'm not disagreeing with you, sir. I think that one of the things that you would need to do is present that, and I will definitely work with Dr. Montoya to get our code of conduct and student handbook ready.
And again, I think the first piece is we need to enforce what's in place right now, even though we only have almost a few weeks left for this year. So that, I think that's number one, and we need to talk to our principals very heavily here shortly. Now, the other piece, obviously, is what I'm hearing here is that the whole board may have some ideas on the dress code for the future, and we need to open that conversation as a group and see what we recommend.
If you don't mind, I have some, depending on what you want to change, we have the different pieces that we've utilized in the past. If you want us to bring that back so that you can view it, if you'll just let Dr. Montoya know.
I don't think I think it's too late in the year to start mandating these kids to change.
For next year.
I think we should let them know that it's going to be changed for next year, or we're going to abide by what we have here. You walk in these schools now, I've been to a lot of elementaries, and these kids come in with T-shirts on, with sayings on them, no matter what. And they just dress like little ruffians. I can't put another word on it. They just don't care.
Dr. Moore, I think we do this, we got to do it in May agenda or June before school is out. So get with the principals, get with the people, decide what you want to do,
Yes, sir.
and we'll get it done.
Yes, sir.
And get it done, because I don't want to do this in July or August, and all the parents are freaking.
I think we should do it in April so they can get it out.
Well, April meeting's closed.
And then there'll be a...
I know. Well, we need to do, if we're going to change the handbook, we got to put it on agenda item. You know, it's got to be an agenda item. We're already in April, so May's the first time we can do this. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do it in May agenda.
Yeah, this should be done quickly, you're right.
Mr. Morrow, what we got going on?
Yeah, because I'm going to be very short. I was going to ask Mr. Bray a couple of questions, but he answered my questions already, so yeah, you can go sit down. And I just want to say to Mr. Bray, and I have been over to talk to him with all the new changes and stuff that came about that, like you said, is mandated with the staff that he has. He has done a wonderful job. And he has kept our district up to the level that we were before all of the mandates that the state came out with. And my last comment is about the dress code. If the board can remember last year about this time and the year before, we always want to enforce the dress code at the end of the year. And the parents always say, all year long, you let my kid wear what they want to do, wanted to wear and do what they want to do. Now we got a month, 2 months left in school. Now you want to change. And I agree. If the board is going to do it, we do it now for the following year. But you have to do it before school's out, because the parents buy clothes and they buy all of this. When they come back in August, you can't say, well, hey, you can't wear this when you didn't tell me before I spent all this money. So if we're going to enforce the dress code, it needs to be all year long and not the last couple of months of the year. And that's my comment.
But Mr. I don't think the board said don't enforce it all year long. I think our expectations are that the principals will enforce it all year.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the board directs at the end of the year The dress code will be enforced. We would do this when all year long, yeah, they're supposed to be doing it, but nothing happens and the board doesn't say anything. So at the last end of the year, we want to say, hey, parents, right now, your kid can't wear this. Right now, your kid can't do this, and they've been wearing it all year long.
You can't do that, no. Mr. Chairman, I think we got a meeting set up for budget workshop on the 23rd of April. Maybe we could put an agenda item.
Let's do this. Let's let Dr. Montoya get with the principals, Ms. Gonzalez get with Dr. Montoya, make recommendations to us, and then if we're close, we'll put it on the 23rd meeting. I agree, because I want to get this done by, June 1st, these people know. Anybody else? Dr. Montoya, anything else?
If I could.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time. Meeting adjourned, 8:58. Thank you.